Oh, there we go. There we go. What's up, guys? AB is here now. How are we all doing? Steven, I'm here. Leah, how are we doing? Can everybody hear me fine? Um, I'm still trying to get this whole thing going. I didn't even get to smoke a hookah all day. Da, 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 da. There we go. Finally. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode with AB Investments. And finally got my new computer now. And we are back in the house to try to, do lives again and talk and see each other and all that stuff, good stuff. Um, I got my hookah finally. Guys, I've been sitting in the same seat right here since 4 o'clock. No food, nothing. I didn't even get the chance to get up. Trying to set all the settings that I've had previously on the old computer that crashed on this one. And even then, I still don't even think I have it all the way right. So can everybody go ahead and tell me, please? Mic check 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me perfectly? And I would like for Steven, you I know you're probably in the chat. If you're in the chat, jump in the Discord, brother. Discord is already on. Corbin Dallas, I know you probably put this comment a while ago. Sorry, I just now got to it. How are you, brother? And Arthur, always a lovely occasion to always have you in here and always talking to you, brother. You're a brother of mine. Leah, always wonderful to see you. And just another ape. Yeah, you know, Steven, I'm right here. ATJG64, hi. And Mr. McCown. No, McCohen. I've been saying it wrong, I believe, for the longest time ever, probably. So hopefully I've said it correctly now, Mr. McCohen. And excuse me, please, for my negligence. Let's see. We got Joe Jet. Okay, thank you for telling me that it sounds good. That's perfect. Fred sounds good to me. Well, that's music to my ears, then, bruh. And Mr. Nickel. I ask, hoping you're having you and everyone else having a great day. I'm having a very fantastic day. Although I didn't do a lot of things because I didn't even anticipate that I was going to do any of this. First, I didn't even think I was going to get the new computer in the. Uh, I didn't think I was going to get it today. First, second, once I got it, I had to sit and start setting. Oh my god, this thing was a nightmare. However, we're here now. That's all that matters. This is a cool stream just to get back into the flow of things and everything. We're going to talk about some stuff, anticipations of price. We got a lovely guest that is actually not a guest. He's part of the family. AKA I mean, just another ape, AKA Super Steven. So whenever he pops into the chat, we'll see him in the Discord. Mrs. Chase, how are you, Veronica Chase? Thank you, appreciate you. It's always a pleasure. So let's start with some of the things that happened today. Today, guys, we had, and I'm going to try to make sure that this is not a very, very long stream, but I missed you guys. I know you've been only seeing me in video format, but now we have to make it more like, we got our lives back. So we could do lives. No, not this. That's bringing the volume down. See, I'm still getting used to the computer. I just wanted to put the brightness down a little bit because it was a little too bright. I felt like AB looked like a ghost. Pabloco, what's up, brother? How are you doing? So I'm gonna start with first the earnings and how one perfect person actually it was owning the float. That's the name of the channel. He mentioned something actually yesterday, and the way he mentioned it was perfect. And the way that he said it, and it makes so much sense. First of all, you see how Netflix missed a million, like, you know, they lost a million subscribers in Q2. And in the same time, you've seen Tesla miss its earnings, yet it was still in the positive, and even in the after hours, it was still in the green. Um, the way that this market is, which is so like non like fundamental in a way, is when they say that they're, what's the best way to put this? When they say that, okay, the expectations for Tesla was to, for example, hypothetically speaking, was to deliver a million cars for Q2. However, when the news or when they had their earnings report, if let's say hypothetically they said, well, we didn't reach a million cars, you know, then automatically what you hear, like what you see like the market, like, okay, well, they didn't meet the expectations, but they still sold this much, which means it still should be green, which doesn't make any sense. You know, if it's less than like the previous quarter and the quarter before that and before the quarter before that, that starts linking to what? Down, down, like a downtrend, obviously, in sales and overall income for them as a company. And that's becoming a trend almost all around the sector. We've seen all the banks a couple days ago, and their drop year over year, like as far as even like their, like how bad, and it was terrible. Like, you know, Goldman Sachs was like 40% plus. Bank of America is getting screwed. I was reporting the other day on Discord, in our Discord. The Bank of America's, you know, it was a thing. Yeah, it was yesterday. Bank of America's top guy in Asia just left the position, and they refused to make comments. He obviously was nowhere to be found to make any comments, which is quite interesting. That's huge. Given that we know all these over leveraged positions that they had or we were exposed to, whether it be the Evergrande or other ventures that we are venturing with out in China. So that's huge. You know, that's really huge. And I'm waiting to see the collateral of that. There was many things that I wanted to talk to, but now that I'm live with you guys and I got busy with all these things, I got distracted away. Let's start with this. Not too long ago, right after the market closed, we had Tesla reported that it sold 75% of its Bitcoin purchases, which is huge. You guys remember a few months ago, I was saying that there was a full-on attack. It seems like there was a full-on attack on Elon Musk from every angle, whether from the media, whether from the obviously political transactions, whether from the company itself, his own board, lawsuits, and now this. Now, them being the second, as I've said before, the second biggest institutional holder of Bitcoin. See, no, nothing is too big for nothing is too big to fall. That is, we'll just put it that way. And we have, like, now that Tesla reported, apparently it said that it sold 75% of his Bitcoin that it had purchased a little more than a year ago, after investing in digital currency. And but when did they sell it? In Q2. So perhaps when we saw that drop down to 17K, um, that was also accelerated through, or that was triggered back when uh, you know Tesla Holdings got into it, because MicroStrategy is number one, Tesla is number two, and as far as institutional holders, and their averages were 30, around 30 31K a coin. Um, Seeing where it dropped, I'm assuming, and this article speaks here, as you can see, that they even sometimes like lost, and even in the past on some of these, some of their exposure to the coins. Now, one thing I found interesting is that they sold everything, like 75% of their Bitcoin. However, they didn't sell their Doge, or at least this article doesn't mention, or there's nowhere mentioned that they sold their Doge in Q2. He did say, Elon Musk himself said that there is an importance to cash. And I understand in these times, doesn't matter who you are, you need as much cash as possible. And I know for a fact he regretted selling all that Bitcoin, but he needed to. Otherwise, he was going to go down. He was going to go down, him and his Tesla, and obviously they just needed the cash. There's always tomorrow, and with someone like this, because Tesla is not necessarily just an electric vehicle company. They got so many outlets. They got homes, solar homes, cell phones on the way, SpaceX, everything. So it's very tough to kind of bid against this company. However, this is still an entity within the overall body and the ecosystem. So when the ecosystem or the body is down, meaning the economy is down, they're also going to suffer. Here we see on the side, the electric vehicle maker reported its first sequential decline in quarterly profit in more than a year as it recovers from an extended shutdown at its Shanghai assembly plant, which honestly, yeah, that could play a role, but not as big as this, as it's said. We got to pay attention to the other stuff playing in the background. Nobody wants to address really the elephants in the elephants, not the elephant, the elephants in the room. There are many things happening in the background. Semiconductors shortage. We got these like random shutdowns here, random shutdowns there. So this plays a part, just not that big overall. The cost of goods, the minerals, lithium, all these kind of things play a big role in this whole thing. So for them to just single it out down to this, which is the extended shutdown of its Shanghai assembly plant, that's overkill in my opinion. In 1 second, let me say some hi, or some highs to the people in the chat. Mrs. Gloria, nice to see you in here. Always a pleasure. Man, it's hot. It's literally my first hookah that I actually get to smoke today, besides working on all that stuff. So now we got done with Tesla. We got this to look at in a bit, but that's going to be really interesting. Let's read this. U.S. existing home sales slide again. Price hit fresh record high. Let's read what that is about. It's very quick. So U.S. existing home sales fell for a fifth straight month in June to the lowest level in 2 years, as fast rising interest rates record high selling prices make buying a home too expensive for a growing share of American households. Well, this is going to be funny because phase 4. In phase 4, you will see how we will get to this, because that other interview, you'll see how that even ties up to it. This is why I said that we are in phase 4. If you watch the phase 4 video, you would know that this fits into that time frame, or in the event. So mortgage interest rates have soared as a result of Federal Reserve's stiff rate hikes to try to tame high inflation, which is not working very well. That has driven a new buyer's monthly payment up by more than 50% in the first 6 months of 2022. Now, let me tell you guys something. As we see, the dollar is like, as the dollar gets stronger, weirdly, the stock market and the crypto market drops. It's just as far as trend wise. So when the government or the feds are applying Fed rate hikes, at that point, the dollar gets stronger, because obviously they're trying to tackle the inflation. But what that does, obviously, is also scare off the markets. This is where our shorters and manipulators come into the play and say, oh yeah, you should expect a downturn, or a red day on AMC or GameStop, because you're within the market. This is why I also disagree with the creators that say that we are within the market. Obviously, not all of them say the same thing, but I don't agree that we are within the market. We are within the market as far as in the manipulation phase. However, we're nowhere near it. When everything goes down, these guys have no money, and phase 5 kicks in. It's going to be in the government's lap, and I believe that we're going to be on the opposite end of the seesaw, where we will just rise up to the sky. Again, my personal opinion, so we'll see what happens. But like I said, as the government or as the feds keep raising hiking rates, you're bound to get a stronger dollar in value, which works well for them internationally. But it hurts as far as even on statistically speaking, it hurts the stock market itself and all the stocks and the crypto market. Now we're seeing dollar go lower. We see some rises here and there in the crypto realm. Ultimately, you guys know my theory on who is jumping in the crypto realm, why we're in phase 4, and who has been working since last year to create a market making system and an ecosystem and overall centralized crypto. No one other than the worst person on the planet, one of the worst people on the planet, Kenny G and co. So by some estimates, and has had clear effect on home sales and had surged during the COVID-19 pandemic to the highest levels since mid-2000s. So here's what we're having. We're having skyrocketing prices for homes because obviously the demand was high. We had money, 2020, 2021. Here you go. Got money, interest rates were less. So everybody was able to go and get whatever loan or any of that stuff. And then next thing you know, now here's why you see like the arrows are almost crisscrossing. And once we reach that, we'll call it a death cross, similar to what is called on the charts, on the technical charts. But we'll use that term right here. But once these two meet in a death cross, this is where you'll have a major plunge because one, now you're going to have, once they meet in the middle, you're going to have less demand. People can't afford, as the interests obviously are going higher and higher. No people are getting money. No people have no access to money because nobody's going to give money, at least not as used to before, unless they have enough collateral that makes sure that they get their money back plus some. That's one. Two, crazy ludicrous interest rates, which are also going to continue to hike. Eventually, we're going to watch that little interview, very short, and that's going to be very, very key. I shared it in the Discord last night. And now that we're live, we could go over it and we could see why the middle meeting that I'm telling you about, we're going to eventually hit that. I'm assuming somewhere around, it could be sooner than what I even anticipate, but I'm assuming somewhere around end of September, maybe beginning of November, somewhere between those 2 months, in those 2 months, that we will see. I don't think that we will hit bottom in that time frame. I think that we would definitely be feeling it. We're seeing the signs of it, but we'll definitely be feeling it and see huge, drastic changes from where we at right now that easily can tell you that that's where we're heading. Why? Because people can't buy existing homes. In the same time, in these past couple years, we have people trying to get, like you had a lot of property builders, project managers who have been working since they saw that there was demand in the past couple years and the prices are surging. It's a buyer's market. So therefore, and a buyer's market for someone and a seller's market for someone. But more importantly, it was a seller's market because everybody was like, hey, look at these prices. Either way, the project managers were also on the back end building homes, building projects, expanding, because they're not waiting on a moment of crash to say, okay, let's stop. That's basically actually, no, sorry. That's actually exactly what they do. They wait until the moment where it's like, okay, if things are worse, okay, now we stop. But there are a lot of projects that are either halfway not done, they're in, and now a lot of projects that will get also canceled. On the same time that we're getting that to stop, we're getting people who don't even want to buy existing homes, not because they don't want to buy existing already built homes, because they can't afford them. So now you're going to have a plethora of these things. When you have a high amount or supply of something and less demand, what does that cause? A downturn in the cost or in the average prices of homes, which is, in other words, a housing crash, because you got a lot of housings, you got a lot of properties, everything was moving smooth. Rate hikes now very aggressive, specifically in the past few months, changing all that trend. Now that all that changed, but we all know that projects don't work over just a few months. And that's where eventually the two are going to hit a sudden break, and then obviously are going to meet in the middle and crash, because things just have to move. The economy have to continue moving, and when it crashes, that's when the people that have been talking about and saying, hey, I can't wait until the end of the year or until the housing crash. I'm waiting. I have a little bit of cash. I have a capital, or I'm waiting for MOS, so I can go ahead and take that and utilize it and purchase properties or get into real estate business or even buy my dream home, but at a reasonable price or at a very cheap price, not at a very inflated price, right? Okay, goodbye, buddy. Okay, now, Javi, what's up, brother? How are you doing? Who's changed his name? Hawk? It's probably Tildog or something. I don't know. PC3, what's up, brother? How are you doing? Leah's asking, how long do you think the downturn will last? It's gonna be tough, Leah, because we've had a couple. Okay, so we had a recession back in the 70s, and some people in here remember it, perhaps, but that one was different than any, like most things. It was very similar, a little bit better. In good and bad terms, but it was a little bit better than the Great Depression. But it took us 6 to 7 years to climb out of that 70s downturn for the markets to truly rebound. And where we at right here, right now, honestly, this is me factor. I think is gonna be down for quite a good amount of time. However, that's not factoring in if we jump into some other wars or we're talking about some other big boys that we're trying to fight. If that ends up being the case, then we have something that obviously we've never seen. Even the Great Depression haven't seen something like that before. So we might have a new Great Depression. I don't know. I don't like to overestimate or underestimate things. So therefore, you have to keep everything in mind and be prepared for whatever possibilities. I know that it's hard for us sometimes to imagine the worst of the worst being in our time frame, our timeline, but so were those people back then, our ancestors back then, our forefathers back then. These people didn't anticipate a Great Depression. They didn't anticipate a 70s major market crash. They didn't anticipate the 80s crash. They didn't anticipate the 2008, the 2001. So it's gonna be interesting. Honestly, I don't have a lot of hopeism for this, for what we're going into, because everything is like from all angles is going crazy, and it's not just here but globally as well. And honestly, I think that in this situation, I'm gonna put an honest from the heart opinion, and this is an opinion. This is not like something where I did DD on it or whatnot. This is where I think possibly the only thing that could perhaps have some sort of savior to us will be the crypto realm and digital, and everything just basically going digital and erasing out with the old and in with the new. But not with them freaking centralizing it, or obviously the people who are trying to jump into it and start at the bottom of that infrastructure. Because if we're in an impasse, the way I see it, I feel like we're in an impasse trying to get rid of this, but you gotta demolish this before you get this implemented. And by implemented, I mean the crypto world being the main financial sector in the industry or globally. Um, keep an eye on CBDC, as I mentioned before, on a couple of the videos, because that can't, like, you know, to implement that, you would have to have obviously a blockchain, and would have to measure up against something. So would it be Bitcoin as the major international currency of the world, and each nation will have its own currency, or like its own digital dollar or digital yen or yuan, or, you know, pesos or whatever it is, a ruble, and then whatever that, depending on that nation's or country's DB, I guess, measures up to what the value of that coin would be, and that would go against, you know, however much it will fare against whatever Bitcoin's value is going to be. Possible. It's all options here. I don't see a case where Bitcoin is not the future. It's just I don't see it again, and that's the most dangerous thing, is the things that you don't see. Those are the things that sometimes either help you the most or hurt you the most. So hopefully that answers it, Veronica. It's we need more data. We need to see way more things, to see more stories develop, to be able to try to gauge. Because for me, the way I go about things is by gauging it. I don't come up with uh, things that I say, or I don't uh, go and overestimate things or underestimate things. At the end of the day, I look at the events that are happening, and through those events, I can try to forward look to what possibly could be could this action be for what? So when I look at a human, and on a smaller level, if I'm dealing with someone, my thing is to try to understand or try to read what their true intention is. People can say many things that don't equate to their true intentions. However, their actions speak much louder than their words. So in this case, seeing the events that are happening, the actions of certain players and people and nations and entities, whether on a micro or a macro level, all eventually add up into the pixels of an overall image, and a giant image. Our job, or the successful, I feel like in my world, or in my opinion, successful people in life are the ones that can get as many pixels in line of that picture and shape that picture or frame that image, given that it's the correct one, as close as possible, so that they can prepare for what to come. And if they were on the spot, then obviously they will reap the benefits for it. If they weren't, then either way, tomorrow is coming. But do we know if we're going to be around for tomorrow? Nothing is guaranteed, right? So I try to have its balance in between. I don't look too far into it. I look back at history. I look back at what happened back then, so I can compare. Uh, that's the only technical analysis that you could do aside from the chart, as far as for markets, is looking back at history, compare events right now, compare it with events in the past, do research on those so you can see timelines, look at what people are doing currently, and certain entities and players, what are they doing, what are they engaging in. That could help make you think. Like, for example, if it's for sure you're going to see China and USA engaging in a war, that changes a complete picture from another picture where it doesn't, that's not a case. So if that honestly makes any sense, it's that's just the way I see things, and the way I look at them. Um, and this is why, I came up with the 5 phases. Javi, how are you doing, brother? Are you good? I bet you are. Mikey J, you are the goat. um, I saw the video you sent about the housing market. It seems like a media is catching up to the news that the apes knew years ago. Um, that's, you remember, I don't know who was it. Oh, I think it was you, Mikey, that asked me that question in Discord and said, "Hey, do you think when MOAS comes, like the media, are they going to change, or are they going to continue their shenanigans against us?" And you remember probably the answer, and the answer was that they'll continue to do their crap until the moment of they will announce that, oh, look at this, because they're setting up a stage, they're setting up a play. And what that play is, it's like, okay, we need to announce to the whole world that these plays are squeezing. And just briefly, and then afterwards, you're going to see a complete gigantic crapping on us, saying that we're one of the factors of why markets, or why people are losing their pension funds, or whatever the case may be at that in those times. We're going to be also obviously victims of being blamed for what's happening all around, so that people can't reach the Ken Griffin. Got 1855, whatever, 18 security guards around him, walking around him all the time. The Bill Gates and the Bezos and the 1%, they're away from our lives, but we're all in this, are in front of each other. So it's easier for the general public to get to an ape than to get to one of these guys over there. So I wouldn't, if you remember also, I wouldn't put too much energy and thought into that, because at the end of the day, months ago, I've told you guys that keep your business to yourself. Just try to advise people from now, as far as not financial advice, but tell them like, hey, look what's coming. Don't tell them like, oh, AMC, GME, that's financial advice. What you need to tell people is how to prepare for what's coming. Now, what they do, it's up to them. There's many ways. Alternative trading. They can go and buy and get into buying bonds. They can go buy real estate if they got the money for it, whatever, as long as they're prepared for what's coming. That's the most important thing. Now, if they ask you and say, what is your plan, or what is your thought about this, you say, I just hedged with you just tell them the truth. I'm not going to tell you what to say. You just tell them the truth. And obviously you know what the truth is. For me, I'm going to say I hedged with being in these meme stocks. What are those meme stocks? Such and such and such and such. If they ask, do you believe this? Because the whole market is saying, institutions, Jim Cramer, everybody's saying it's terrible. They're not worth anything. Motley Fool is always saying they're worth 50 cents or whatever. Are you sure? Like for me, I have conviction, and here's my conviction. Now, you need to go and do your own DD, but most importantly, you planted that seed of wariness for them to actually pay attention to what is coming, so that they can be prepared and not blindsided like 2008 and have millions of people become homeless. I think that's unfortunately going to be the reality regardless, but at least I could sleep at night and say that I did my best. By the way, the thumbnail on the video, that was one of my most unbelievable businesses that I've had adventures. It was crazy. I'd never ever thought it would be the business, or turn out to be the business that I saw it to be, or whatever it became. It's called the Doghouse. I went to this Newport in Kentucky. It was also in the same complex of an AMC theater here in Cincinnati and Kentucky, Newport, Kentucky. And it was directly facing the aquarium, the aquarium we got here. And it was a bay. As you can see in the thumbnail, it's just a bay. In fact, let me see if I can pull up the... where is it? Where is it? Did I have it in here? See, I'm new. I just got it literally. You could tell this today. Yeah. I'll go through pictures and stuff. Anyhow, you guys probably seen it on thumbnail, but yeah, it was a small bay. One of the most profitable businesses I've had, and is the least spent up on it. It literally only cost me about $7,000, almost 8K, to get that place ready registers and everything. Register, get the sinks, get everything, the grills, get the what do you call those? The most expensive thing in it was this grease trap. I had to get a grease trap. I couldn't get it from an auction, so therefore I had to get it new, and I got fleeced on that. I don't remember exactly what was the right price on it, but I remember it was the most expensive thing. I had my steamers and everything, and I knew nothing about the hot dog business. And literally, I just made the sign. I had one of my buddies who does that stuff, signage, is some Uzbekistani guy, and he helped. I did business with him for my hookah business at the time. So he was giving me a good deal on those. Anywho, I'm just trying to tell you guys how with a little bit of money you can do a lot actually. Just you need to have the idea or you need to have the motivation to do things. So in the summer, spring, and fall, that place, I kid you guys not, on daily, like on Fridays or Saturdays, on the weekends, especially and Sundays, just over 7-8 hours of shift. And I had my employees in there who were actually making good money and tips too, because all people are coming. It was an attraction, like a touristic attraction, right on the river in the middle of the city, right in front of the aquarium. People are bringing their kids. I kid you guys not. We would ring up ludicrous numbers, like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a day in on these weekends. On the weekdays, be much less, not as much foot traffic on it, but we would still go over the 2,000, almost 2,500 sometimes on the weekdays. And that's crazy because your overhead and your true cost on that thing was not much versus many other businesses that I've handled. Their price point, that your cost on things were obviously something, and then your profit was at best about what, 60% in the food industry at best. With that one, it was my most expense was the inventory was very small. The overhead was very low, so I didn't have much overhead, and the employees, that was my main cost really, like overall the payroll, and even that was nothing compared to the overall pie. We're yanking in over 60-70% almost profits by the end of every month. It was crazy. I never even thought in a million years that something like that would do something like that great. And the best part was the negotiation part for that lease. That lease was whew, when I went up to the management of that property of the plaza, the Newport on the Levee. I remember sitting with them and said, okay, I'm not gonna do no automatic base rent, because they wanted like over $10,000 in rent every month because it's a touristic attraction. Doesn't matter how big or small. And I had to take a puff for you guys and for myself. And when they were like, okay, so what do you suggest so we could negotiate? I said, how about we do a base rent of, and look at this, anything above. It was so artistic at the time because it was beautiful. So I said, we don't know if this project is going to work, and it's good for you guys, and it could possibly be good for me. But if it's not, it's a win-win situation for you guys because you're not doing anything with this bay, that little like welcoming. You saw it like cylinder, very small. But for me, I have everything to gain, but also a lot to lose. You guys have nothing to lose. It's sitting there. It's empty. I could do something with it if it brings you, that's extra income for your papers. So when we went through that, I said that how about we do anything above 10K a month in sales, you will get 40% above that, and we will have a base rent of I remember it was $1,500, but then after the first year it would climb up to 2,500, so 1,000 extra. Now I wasn't even worried too much about that because all I said I was going to do a 2-year lease with them, and then 3-year lease in fact, and then the third year was optional. And if I wanted to continue further, we would have the rights to actually sign up and go for like, you know, more down the line with them. Why did that stop? Here's the funny thing. In the winter, obviously nobody's coming outside. Nobody's moving around. We got snow, we got rain and whatever. So in the winter months, we were just taking a hit. But the beautiful part about it is since there was not a base rent except something like low, like 1,500, we were making that regardless from the employees of the plaza. It's a huge plaza that had a trading company in the second floor. You had AMC in the third floor, a huge one. Many other stores, retail stores in there. So employees and people coming to it were coming to us regardless. And I'm sure that we will be able to pay that 1,500 at the end of that month, just for three and a half months worth of winter time. And then the rest was all great times. And it was just like that, ladies and gentlemen. And it stopped simply because they were bought out by another entity out from California, and they ended up going to renew and reform everything. And they had a bylaw in the contract that if they were ever to be sold, then the new person coming in, except for the big businesses like the because there was Mitchell's fish market, there was Barnes and Noble, AMC, certain entities, their contracts, no matter who was coming in, they were guaranteed and they couldn't, like, you know, be messed with. The smaller guys, if a new entity came in, they had the right to terminate any contract or whatever. And that they had to do, they did a complete makeover for the whole plaza. So it was understandable. Anyways, I would have left regardless, even if they didn't say you gotta leave, because it took about a whole summer and a winter, yeah, a whole year for them to get that up and running. And they also, AMC took the chance in that time to renovate their theater in there as well. Anyways, we went through a side story here, but I thought it was just fun to talk about. Let's see. What do we have in here? Who am I saying hi to in here? Well, obviously everybody, as always. We got the Coiler is in the house. How many? Let's see. I'm right. Yeah, I'm calling. Dips Patel. Dippin, how are you, brother? Nice to see you in here. Thank you, Leah. And I know a guy from Boston who would be a great addition to the Motley Fool team. Send them, share with them the link. And Stacia, how are you doing, my friend? It's lovely to see you in here. I'm glad that you're here. Hopefully everything is great with you. Mikey J is like, I'm smoking right along with you. Is it a hookah or are you smoking that? Ooh wee. Now everybody wants to smoke. I'm sorry to be a bad influence, guys. Miss Gloria, how are you, my friend? All right. So let's move on to the next thing. Like I said again, this was a good setup on the computer, the new computer tonight. So I wasn't even planning on going live, but we did it regardless. There was a couple of things. We'll talk about this chart in a second. I shared this also on Discord. This was BHP, which is the third largest iron producer in the world. And they say they're not concerned about China's plan to centralize iron ore buying. Remember the interview a few weeks ago we had that with what's his name, Mr. Duncan, and he was talking about how China has this infrastructure and they've been building this infrastructure and they got a head start on all the West and especially the G7 with the resources and access to resources. So this right here is hilarious because you got this guy, BHP Group is not worried about a plan by Chinese companies to centralize iron ore buying and will focus instead on maintaining good ties with Chinese customers, CFO David Lamont said on Thursday. Now, here's the thing that Mr. Lamont knows, but for the media, he's just saying this because he doesn't think that the people know that that does not really apply? Why doesn't that apply? Why does AB think that does not apply? Sorry, I'm changing the charcoals on my hookah. So why do AB think that that does not apply? He's just saying, he's rambling some rubbish right now, because the Chinese customers are a part of the Chinese system. The Chinese system is a communist system. There's no such thing as you. If the regime says do this, you do that. And these guys are not doing this for the sake of, like, especially the Chinese companies. They're not doing this and forming this like a huddling, like, or a cult or a gang over this, because they're not doing that because they just want to do it for the sake of it, because they see why iron or other precious minerals are extremely important, or metals. No, they're doing this because they've been working on this for years to build a new infrastructure, and we'll get into that right now. Media have said that several Chinese state-owned iron ore buyers are forming a new enterprise to boost their bargaining power in procuring materials. Asked if the plan to set up a central iron ore buying enterprise was likely to succeed, Lamont said history would say no. And here's where Mr. Lamont is completely, I personally feel, is dead wrong, because history truly, yes, says that that never worked out, and where obviously another country like China would come in, or a power, to try to corner the market, for that market. But the problem here is that China has been operating for decades now on getting out of this game or this picture. They're creating a different environment, a different historical, or for the future and the present and for the history at that time, structure and a system, where where it's a system where they're not just a player in it, but they are the player in it. They are the main player in it. That was very loud. Microsoft Store saying you got your photos. So history is correct until what Mr. Lamont, and I don't know if he knows this or not, but he's just saying it because he's on an interview. But China doesn't have any interest in just trying to play or fit into the system. They've been creating their own system so they can corner these precious metals and minerals, because that's where the world is moving. These very, very, very rare metals, whether it's iron, cobalt, uranium, everything. There's so much more we can go down the list, and they've been working on this for so many years now, so that they can be a part, not just a part, but the driving factor of the future, of the vehicle of the future that is coming, and in the kind of world that we're going to be living in, that's going to be heavily dependent on that stuff, especially when you got everything going electric. That stuff needs these minerals, and they got a big head start on everybody in the world with that, in that regard. BHP, the world's third largest producer of iron ore, sells the bulk of its output to China. The company led efforts more than a decade ago and ended an annual iron ore price setting talks in a shift to market-based pricing. So think of it like this. Pretend you're a producer. Put it this way, actually, hypothetically speaking, pretend that you own a chicken farm, and you got obviously customers that you distribute to. Put it this way, and you guys can put it in the comments. Would you be giving the customers that get the biggest amount or the most bulk from you, will you give them those chickens, those big bulks of chickens, for more equivalent value to everybody else, or for less because they're buying more? Now, I'll tell you this while you guys are writing your comments. In business, as I'm used to it, the bigger the player, the better the price. Because why? Because they could secure more, meaning they could bargain for cheaper values. When somebody comes and buys 1,000 chickens, that's different. Uh, they get treated different than the person or an entity that's coming to buy 100 or 50 or 10. And you see how it is. So when you buy more, you get for less. You buy less, obviously, and naturally, the price will be a little bit, more like the normal sentiment on the overall market. So when these guys, when China is, as we seeing right here, it sells the bulk of its output. So majority of its iron ore output is to China. Don't you think that China can say, hey, we want it for a better price. This is what we take it for. Are they gonna say yes or no? That's what China is working on. This guy, Mr. I've already forgot his name because he's irrelevant. David Lamont is saying no. We're just gonna keep it as whatever the market value for it is. China is saying we're working. Their actions are more like no. We're gonna do it. We're gonna force you at some point to do this. If not, we already have a different infrastructure in the works. So you either fit within our infrastructure and play by our rules that we're setting up, or we'll make you the no longer the third largest, the world's third largest producer, because we won't be getting any of this, the majority of your bulk to us. That's what's making you the third largest. If they take China out of it, they take themselves out of the equation, this guy won't be the third largest producer. Okay, so he ended it with our key focus is the customer relationships that we have on the ground in China, which are very robust and very strong. I don't know if this guy knows what he's talking about or not, but at the end of the day, China is not like USA. So yes, as corrupt as and as manipulative the system most of you feel like we have here, but it's way different and better than what is happening over there in China. So for this guy to think that they have this, look at what happened with Russia. Look at it. Russia, all the companies there, they took catastrophic losses. McDonald's, they shut down all of it. So yeah, we shut down all our locations there, but guess what? Russia said, doesn't matter. They took over these spaces, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they got them open with the McDonald's sign, with the logo and everything, and say, who's going to come and force us to do something about it or shut it down? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised. But that's the difference between here and in the Far East in China. Now, let's listen to this guy about the housing market and hear this. Some of you might have heard it in the Discord, but listen to this because I didn't react to it in the Discord. I just shared.
No better conversation to have than with Jerry Howard. You know him as the CEO of the National Association of Home Builders. And sir, I'm wondering sort of your
The CEO of the National Home Builder Association. So this is not just any random Joe that they're just bringing on the show and saying, hey, how about you just speak about something that you don't know about or whatever the case may be. Okay. So this guy knows his stuff.
key takeaway from this report, how you're reading it.
Well, the only way we can read it is that it looks like we're heading into a housing recession. And if that is indeed the case, it doesn't bode well for the economy as a whole. There's still some hope that things can turn around, but we're getting more and more pessimistic.
Home builders getting more pessimistic, yet still the affordability question there, the need for more supply. When we look at the housing starts data that we're going to get a little bit later in the week, are people still going to want to be breaking ground, Jerry?
No, I think people are going to start to hold off. In fact, when I travel the country and talk to builders, a lot of them are starting to get very, very cautious about whether they're going to break down. That's particularly true in the spec market, but it's also true in the market where they are negotiating with customers for sales right now, because at the same time as we're seeing inflation on the mortgage rates and interest, we're also seeing increases in construction costs that are really throwing the market off. What I'm really worried about is historically, housing has led us into every recession since World War II, but it's also led us out of every recession since World War II. Right now, with the supply shortage we have, with the fact that we're getting hit at both ends of the pipeline, cost of construction and then cost of loans, I don't know that we'd be able to lead us out of a recession. I think that this is a potentially dangerous situation.
Straight from the dragon's mouth, guys. You're hearing all this. He's traveling around the country and seeing all this stuff. He's saying we're getting hit from both pipelines. The cost of goods obviously is high. The inflation is high. In the same time, the interest rates are high. So demand for these projects or these houses are also dropping. So he sees that this is going to be dangerous, and he doesn't think that we're going to be led out of a recession. He thinks that this is going to put us in a much worse place, and he thinks it's going to be much worse for later. Now, remember what I was telling you in phase 4. Let me rewind here a little bit.
In construction costs that are really throwing the market off. What I'm really worried about is historically, housing has led us into every.
Remember a few lives ago, was it a lives or a video? Lives, when I was down in Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, I said, for those of you people who've been in the market for a while, we gauge the sentiments of what will most likely happen in the future, in the near term or the far future, through some actions like, remember when I broke down the whole Morgan Stanley 4.4 or $4.2 billion spec that fell through, and they had to basically cancel all the plans. They couldn't find a suitable company that was private to take public and obviously make a lot of money off of, because most of the investors within the spec wanted their money back, because no matter what great company they find in these times, this is what they're saying. This is like their action, them, that spec deal, which was the largest in history, falling apart. That's an indication, as what I'm breaking down to you, that the overall, even institutional big players are betting on a big crash or recession to come, because they're not seeing, even if there's great companies out there, and we know there's a plethora of great companies out there, they don't think, no matter how great of a company it is, and we're seeing it in the stock market, you see the Amazons, the Googles, the Teslas, the Microsofts, everything. All of those are getting hit. They are way less year over year, and they're going down, spiraling down. I mean, what, just this time last year, Tesla, or even less than last year, Tesla was around 12, 1300 a share. Where are we at now? At some point, we went down under even a half. Right now, we're about what, 45% in the red for Tesla? And I think that personally, again, I think that we're just in the beginning. This is why these people are acting like this. So their action with that spec deal falling apart, and this guy just mentioned it in here, that was an indication. You heard it from this institutional big player, obviously, saying it. So instead of guessing, for me, I don't like, as I told you guys before, I don't like to underestimate or overestimate things. I like to go with what's in front of me, and that's how I can gauge the sentiments of the events that are going to happen. This is how I come up with my stuff. I don't just create it and just put out my opinion. So when I see people go through that, that means these individuals, these high players, these big money people, they're rather could sit on their money, take their money, invest in further down the line, whether 20-year bonds, 10-year bonds, investing more into the future rather than now, because they don't see even the greatest of companies having a great possibility to take it public and obviously benefiting off of.
Spec market, but it's also true. And talk to builders, a lot of them are starting to get very, very cautious about whether they're going to break down. That's particularly true in the spec market.
See, he just said in the spec market, it is very true. And then eventually.
But it's also true in the market where they are negotiating with customers for sales right now, because at the same time as we're seeing inflation on the mortgage rates and interest, we're also seeing increases in construction costs that are really throwing the market off. What I'm really worried about is historically, Housing has led us into every recession since World War II, but it's also led us out of every recession since World War II. Right now, with the supply shortage we have, with the fact that we're getting hit at both ends of the pipeline, cost of construction and then cost of loans, I don't know that we'd be able to lead us out of a recession. I think that this is a potentially dangerous situation.
I'm wondering if you can draw out a little bit more some of the supply side
Potentially.
issues here, Jerry. If confidence is hitting a new multi-year low, then what does this mean in terms of the broader issues that you can see among builders and all the people who are in the supply side?
Well, you're going to see builders do what they do in terms of a recessionary climate.
You guys saw that sign that said sold on a project that is not finished? We're going to get to a point, I personally believe, in the next few months where you're going to have many of these. And this happened in 2008, by the way. Fact check me. One is covering this particular part because they don't remember this event, or they probably overlooked it or didn't never pay attention to it. A lot of projects were beginning, and I think in the next few months we're going to experience this, where sold properties are no longer going to be delivered, and people have paid money for them. However, these banks are going to be like, well, we're not going to be able to give you when the market fully crashes. Obviously, you're going to have moments where, oh, you're basically shit out of luck on this and this. Why can't they finish the project? Because the cost of goods are going higher, and they basically will say at some point, we can incorporate that and make a new cost on this because we took the money from you. However, the costs of things were skyrocketing after we took the money. So on the moment of the securing the loan or paying for the property, things were at a different cost down here. Now, cost of things are up here. Who's gonna chop up that loss? Basically, neither this guy or this guy. And who eventually is gonna eat the pie, the floating pie in the sky? The individual that paid for this property, and they're gonna get something that is not finished, and they're gonna get screwed. This is exactly something also that happened in 2008, right at the last few moments. If we were to compare it or put it in the phases that I refer to, that eventually obviously will be phase 5, because eventually it will be put in the hands of the government. Hey, what are you going to do? A lot of people are going to get screwed. Let's continue.
They'll retrench a little bit. Some of them will start taking on contracts for larger remodeling and renovation projects. You'll see them, as I mentioned, stop doing any spec housing. And on the supply side, hopefully, this situation will drive policymakers to the conclusion that we need to have a long-term lumber agreement with Canada, that we need to get the supply chain fixed, and that we need to get rid of some of the regulations, particularly at the state and local level, but also the federal level, that are increasing the cost of housing. And then lastly,
so you see what he's saying? He's basically asking for the impossible. What he's saying is that we need to have some sort of base, a secured fixed rate, no matter what is happening on these goods. The suppliers of these goods, like lumber or whatever, are saying, we don't have a problem with that. Sure, but you got to talk to the other side. The feds, the government, the hiking of the rates is making inflation, because the inflation is high, costs of goods are naturally high on us, therefore we're going to incorporate that in on you. So what this guy is asking for is a fairy tale that basically just will not happen. It is just not going to happen, because the other side, the Fed, are not going to say, okay, we're going to forget about inflation, because their core sayings now is that we want to tackle inflation. We don't care about growth. What is this? Housing is within growth. So by basically giving the middle finger to this sector and many other sectors just so that they can tackle inflation, this guy and the housing market are not going to get what they're basically not just yearning for, but hoping for. As he says, we are hoping. And sorry, brother, Mr. Howard, but your hopes are going to be met short.
we need to look at our labor supplies over the long term. There are still hundreds of thousands of jobs out there in the construction sector that haven't been filled.
So how do you square that? If you have a number of jobs that are open that haven't been filled, and yet you're starting to see a slowdown, it's sort of this quote, if we get there, housing recession due to
Mark her, look at her face. Look at how she's explained it. She knows that what he's saying, and look at his face, his eyes too. They both know that this is BS right now, but they have to do it for the sake of the interview. It's impossible for them to get what basically is saying they're hoping for.
jobs that are open.
And he's saying that we're getting, and she said that we have a lot of openings. How do we fill those? Well, how do you fill them when companies, which these construction companies also are a big part of the whole pie, are laying off forces because the cost of goods is higher. In order for them to survive, they need to start doing things where they cut. We've seen many companies, whether Tesla, Coinbase, many companies, and more are coming on the way of chopping down their workforce and basically making, like, minimizing their workforce. And that by doing that minimization, that force that is still there, not the laid off part, are going to basically still be expected to do the same output that the company was with 100% employee. So think of it like this. If we had a 10-man job, a 10 people's job, and eventually, okay, times are rough, we need to let go as a company, head of the company, we need to let go at least of 30% or 40% of this. So we took out 4 of those 10 employees. Now we have 6 left. However, we need to keep the same production up and we need to continue going. So now you're expecting the 6 to do the 10 people's job for the same pay. This is also explains another issue why a lot of the force or the employees out there, whether in mining, whether in the construction world, whether in many other realms, whether in the fossil fuel realm, all these strikes that you're hearing about that we've covered in the past, these people want to get paid more because they want to be able to survive these inflations. Do you see how many problems are pouring in the same cup? This is what makes eventually things unbearable. This is why phase 5 will be the phase where they basically we have to say, okay, we're either going to press that eject button and we're just screwed, which is not an option, or option number 2, bail out the economy, let the taxpayers pay for the rise, and let the same individuals or monsters, the Kenny G's and the people that brought in these big is the banks that brought down the economy in every economic recession or depression, to build the system back up again so that they could ride it up again from the bottom all the way to the top abruptly, and eventually in another 10, 12, 15 years we're going to be back at square one yet again, or at the same position yet again. So let's continue.
That haven't been filled, and yet you're starting to see a slowdown. It's sort of this quote, if we get there, housing recession due to a supply issue, or are there more concerns about a demand issue?
Well, the more interest rates go up, the more it becomes a demand issue. It's sort of
I said this a little bit ago to you guys. Remember? Higher interest, less demand. There's supply, but less demand, meaning less workforce. Everything is basically like a pizza that's smashed against the wall. How do you fix it? How do you deal with it? You can't bear it. The ultimate answer, where all the arrows are pointing to, is a full-on crash. I don't like saying that. I don't want that. But unfortunately, you know what the world is and what the world we want it to be are 2 different things. So let's continue.
a catch-22, if you will. The demand had been very, very strong. We never fully stopped seeing demand as we came out of the Great Recession. So demand was out there, household formation is strong, but if people can't afford to buy, particularly the first-time home buyer can't get into the market, that has an impact across the board.
Jerry, how?
He just said the first, particularly the first-time home buyer. You guys remember the last Fed meeting? You guys remember when Jerome Powell was asked and he said, yeah, we understand that first-time home buyer needs a break. And how do they get a break? By bringing down the basically the skyrocketing prices of the housing market. How does that happen? As we're seeing it unravel right in front of our faces, ladies and gentlemen, by crashing that market, less demand, no afford, eventually reaches an impasse. Well, that's what I meant by reaching the middle, and then eventually it goes down, spiraling downwards until it reaches some point at a bottom rate. And the lucky ones that have capital or have been preparing for such event would basically be the people that would benefit the most out of this, because they can come in and build right at the bottom, have a base, not be the victims of it, but be more of the individuals or the percentage of the people that will be benefiting from such a downturn, not affected by it. So as sad and as terrible for this is to be said, but I am happy to hear that, but I'm also extremely distraught and broken down from the idea of it's also going to come in at the expense of many, many, many people, because those drops, somebody's taking that loss. Somebody's holding these bags. And even in that, it doesn't have to be in the stock market, even in the housing market. Yeah, we will benefit from it. People who's been leveraged or over leveraged correctly with the stock market or in the movement that we believe that we're in, and when it pays off, we will be the people that are standing on the opposite end of this terrain and benefiting from it mostly. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to suffer that didn't prepare for such thing.
How much duress are home builders under to lower their prices? How much are they worrying about, well, the people who have signed contracts but haven't yet got their houses, and what the knock-on effects are there?
Well, a lot of those contracts had escalator clauses in them, believe it or not, that the builder would expect if he had to pay more for some of the materials, that the customer would pick up the price at the back end.
You see this? So they put these clauses in for the 2008 situations where they didn't have these clauses, and just things just went crazy. And these people were suing banks and project managers of the construction. So they had these clauses in case things would go up. And the problem is the buyer is saying, okay, well, I would love to continue going higher, but now I need more money. There is no money on the street unless you're paying a higher premium and higher interest rates, let alone no availability, and not as easy availability like last year or in 2020 to secure money or capital. So therefore, they will reach an impasse. However, the builder is going to say, okay, well, I did have that in the clause. If you can't provide the extra amount, I'll stop right here. The buyer is going to say, well, if they're going to stop, I can't, you're not giving me. This is where you get into that ultimate sad situation where the person is standing and barking towards the wrong tree, or at the wrong tree. They're going to look at the system or the banks and say, well, you're not giving me, I want to pay the extra, but you're not giving me the option, because I don't want to take the option of losing what I already am on the hook for. And when they default on these, because they don't have access to that extra money that this guy was just talking about for these clauses, who chops up the loss? Who chucks up the loss? I'm pretty sure you have a good idea, guys, to where we're going with this, right?
Or they would cancel the contract. I'm starting to hear more and more now about cancellation of contracts in the last month and a half than I have ever before.
To the extent that prices can start falling in the housing market, then how do they fall? How fast do they fall? And do they fall fast enough to avert any potential future issues?
Well, that's an interesting question, because we haven't had this situation before where we're going into a recession, but we still have major supply shortages. And I guess it's going to depend upon how recessionary the rest of the economy gets as to how this will all balance out in the end. Right now, I think that if this recession is, as our economists are saying, relatively shallow, and we come out of it by the middle or the end of next year, I think we'll be okay. But if it gets any more dire, that's when I think we're going to have a longer term and a deeper problem.
That was the ultimate political answer, and it can't get more political than that. He literally said that, okay, so he's playing by the same sayings or the rules that the feds are saying and all that. So they're all within the same circle, ladies and gentlemen, and they're echoing the same sentiment. Now this person here, this guy, Jerry Howard, is putting overall the ultimate fate of the housing market in the lapse of the overall general sentiment of the economy, and therefore also saying that, hey, if the feds don't stop hiking rates and whatever and all that stuff, then we possibly could come out of it by the beginning or the end of next year. However, if not, then we could get much, much, much worse. How bad? He obviously doesn't want to say that we're effed. That's basically what he can't say. And that's basically what he's saying.
What is the historical lead time? If housing is the leading indicator, what signals are you next looking for?
I think the next signal that we have to look for is the labor markets and unemployment. In fact, right now, in a conversation I had today with some economists, that is the only signal that's outstanding that would keep us from saying we're definitely heading into a recession.
You remember just about a couple months ago, or about a month and a half ago, when I was telling you, this is how we gauge it. How do you gauge the housing market? How many of you in here can remember that? Write it in the comment, where I was asked even these questions. How do you gauge the housing market crash? I was telling you that it's through employment, because obviously when people lose jobs, people can't pay for their mortgages. People can't have money, obviously don't have money to fulfill certain things, which obviously eventually leads into this. This guy, the head of the snake right now, just mentioned, re-echoed to you, what, a couple months later. And this is nothing new for people who've been in the market for like a long time, or witnessed 2008 or other market recessions or crashes, because it's the same thing over and over again. It just takes the experience of being in it, or known about it, or studied it, in order for you to expect these moves. And this is, again, fact check me, guys. I know in here, out of whoever's still in this chat right now, I know that there's been some people that have heard me say this before, over a month ago, to you, that this is the major point. And now he's saying that overall, this is the last hope. Now he's basically coming out less political and telling you exactly, well, if this goes to shit, the job market and the working force, then we're definitely just effed in the housing sector. That was hopefully very informative for you guys. Ooh, that was very loud. Almost. Hopefully that was very informative to you guys. But it's very, very good to me, honestly, to see things happen when we were talking about it before. Let me see some maybe comments or questions here. And then I'll continue on with the chart analysis. Who do I have in here? Mikey J, I got that sndls. That's what you were smoking, huh? Stacia is laughing at that. Mikey J said, I wonder how many Chinese citizens are under the poverty line. Does China making these moves to create a different environment actually help the average Chinese men and women? It's a very good question, Mikey. And here's the thing. China, put it this way. I'm about to tell you guys something that is not overall said in the market or in things like that. This is just spoken based on common sense. And I'll tell you what this is. But normally we don't think about it because it's just not covered or coveted. I'm going to give you two examples. Me and you, Mikey, I'm a head of a household and you're a head of a household. I have two children. My income is 100K a year and your income is 100K a year, same amount, okay? We'll just go, for math purposes, we'll just break it down like this so it could be easier. So we both get paid 100K a year. My household, I have two kids. In your case, you have 6 kids. You love to have kids. So let's say you got 6 kids. Who between the two households will have a rough time in life or rougher monetarily time than the other? Who do you think? Is it AB, who have 2 kids to take care of, or Mikey, who have to take care of 6? So we do know one thing. If I divide 100K on a family of 4, basically me, my significant other, and 2 kids, and let's say 100K was just getting us by, then how would a family of 8, which is basically, that's my family, that's why I chose 8. My mom and dad had 6 kids together. So how would the Mikey and his household be able to get by or feed enough mouths, all 8, versus the person who, like in my case, I have to take care of 4? If I'm barely getting by with these inflations and everything to take care of 4 and living above poverty line, how would the person have 8 kids? At some point, that was normal, it's feasible, because no market downturns were happening. And you can't just decide on having a family or kids based on, oh, maybe within the next 12 years, we're going to have a recession, so I'm not going to have any extra kids. I don't know, maybe there are people out there that think like that. I don't think that's logical, or that's not a way to go about life. But at that point, who's going to have a really rough position? Who's set in a very rough position? The household with 8. How's that similar to the question that you asked me, Mikey? The answer is China has the biggest amount, or the most amount of lives for people that it has to take care of. So yeah, they possibly are not getting the same amount as the US. We know that there's the second economy in the world. So we have to feed, we get more and we feed less because we have less amount. And this is simple common sense, just think of it like this. I don't even have to look at numbers to know this. That's not how I gauge it. They, given that we know that they're the second largest economy in the world, meaning they have access to procure less, right? Income. So less is coming, but you have more people to take care of. What do you think the outcome is going to be? Especially in this global situations. This is exactly why China is actually doing their thing. This is why it all ties up to each other, Mikey and everyone else. This is why China is trying to take itself out of this system that has been going on for over 100 years, trying to create its own infrastructure, a new world order, so that basically it does not, it's the man, or it's the player, not one of the players, it's the player in a new system. That's why they formed the what's their name? We got the G7, and I can't think of it. It's right on top of my head. I mentioned it before to you guys a couple of times. Come on, who knows it? BRICS. That was quick. I got myself back. BRICS. So yes, so BRICS versus G7. So they're basically trying to create that new ecosystem that takes care of them, because they know their means and they know what they need and they know how terrible things could get for them if they don't act. And they've been on this movement for over a couple decades even. You track it and go back, you'll see that they began this rebuild process a couple decades ago, and now they're on the 4 steps of trying to actually will it in. Will the G7, in other words, also the allies, allow that to happen, politically speaking? Also politically answering that it can never be the case, because, you know, it's just like, I've never seen a case in history where the top dog willingly paved the way for another dog to come in and take their place in the food chain or in the ecosystem. I know I'm speaking politically here, but one thing you know that you always will get from me is truthness and straightness. I don't care what the truth brings along, whether it bears harm for me or whatnot, but I will say it because after all, I said this earlier to a friend. God bless her soul for a good advice that she gave me. If I have God on my side, this is just AB. If I have God on my side, what is any weak human being compared to God Almighty can do to me? That's my mindset. So whatever any entity or individual or power or whatever is going to do to me, it's not going to be anything compared to what the most important individual or the individual, the Almighty, can do for me or can protect me from or have already planned it or willed it for me. So I've already, long time ago, I've surrendered to his will and I am his servant. So therefore, again, this does not apply on everybody else. I'm not pushing any agendas on anyone else. I'm just telling you the person that you're listening to and the person that you're looking at, this is who they are and this is how they view life. So therefore, I don't care what the truth brings along with it, as long as it's the truth, or at least to the best of my knowledge. Hopefully that answers that question, Mikey. Mikey also said, how does one measure sentiment? They could have used a different word for their data. Hopefully that interview, because I think that comment came or that question came before that interview. Hopefully that interview shed some light to you, Mikey, on how you gauge that sentiment. I see the smiley face, Mikey, so you probably got it. Mrs. Tahiti, one of my shining lights. I thank the Lord for actually getting me to know an individual like you or have an individual like you in my life, Mrs. Tahiti. You're on, I caught you. Whimsy Chick, good evening to you as well. Whimsy Chick has said, we better squeeze first before housing recession. I'm already to dust off my interior design skills and flip houses. Well, I pray to the Almighty that you get that and beyond of your wildest imaginations and your dreams as well. So hopefully for you and everyone else. I want to do Airbnbs. Yeah, I want a B&B as well. We all want to do Airbnb. Well, I'm one of them. I don't know. Amazing idea, especially at the right time. You know what it could bring you in the future when things rebound eventually. You'll have hard assets. These retail, not retail. These real estate properties, whether land, whether housing, they only grow in value with time. So the key is buy here, sell there. And given the right conditions in the market, you also benefit. How many people were benefiting from the Airbnbs? You see how expensive those rentals for those Airbnbs, because they're factoring in also what the market is factoring in on them. So best of luck, Whimsy Chick, and to everyone else thinking about it. Exactly. At Whimsy, couple duplexes, a couple Airbnbs. I want a mountain home too, but most in Florida. Hey, amen to that, Mrs. Tahiti. In the clutch, amen, brother. You and Mikey J. And the coiler. Mrs. Tahiti, right back at you, AB. I think, oh my God, you're going to make me now tear on public. So I'd rather keep it in my heart than letting you guys see and come down my eyes. Jay-Z said that, so I want to give him credit. If he doesn't take other people's credit. Leo the Lion, party at AB Investments house. Come on over, guys. Anybody, come on over. We're more than welcome. Mike Oxlong. I think this is Tell Dog playing with me. One of the moderators is changing their name nonstop. But I believe that's the. What is this? Oh my God, it is. It's definitely Tell Dog. I got you later. And you got me by pressing on it. Be careful, people. Don't press on that link. It's gonna take you to that Rick Astley song, Never Gonna Give You Up. Tell Dog, I'm gonna get you. Tell Dog, we have to I have to get you to come into obviously the incubator and speak to the rest of the family about crypto. I see growing interest in the crypto world because every time I've talked about it, people kind of didn't want to hear it. People just are somehow centered, and I'm not saying to all the family, just I guess a good amount of people who want to hear about it. Everybody just wants to talk AMC, 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 but they will never know the answers for AMC if you don't gauge the rest of the equation or look at the rest of the pie. You can't just look at one corner of the picture and expect to understand or visualize the rest of the image. You got to take a step back, look at everything so you could possibly get a better, clearer vision on what that frame is and what that picture is going to be so you can look at the whole picture. So yeah, Tell Dog, we should talk about some crypto to the family now that the interests are growing a little bit more. Just briefly, obviously, I'm not saying stepping away from AMC or GNE or covering the stock market, but we need to be very versatile and we need to be very well knowledge across the whole sector. This is what I want for our community. This is what I want for our family. I don't want us just to be thinking this, and then when you reach a situation where we're done with this, people think that it's just going to be okay. Now it's time for me to think about what to do. No, we need to have all those. We need to have answers before the meal is finished and cooked, so that we know what to do after, the MOS hopefully takes place, whether in the near term or in the long term. Hookah party. I got a lot of hookahs because when I sold the hookah bar, I took all the hookahs with me. So I got like 40 hookahs. Yeah, I'm much older, but I'll get brand new ones for everybody. Mrs. Tahiti, I love that name. He's right there. He sees it. Mikey J loves it. He's laughing on it. We got, Tell Doc talking about XRP. Yeah, we'll talk. So from the incubator, you'll be able to talk, brother. So prepare your speech. Prepare your speech so you can go on in front of the rest of the family and the community and share the wealth and the knowledge. That's what's so precious about our community is we have so many brains and knowledge in so many different ways and so many different realms. And I'm obviously always open. This is why I got the incubator ready, so that whenever there is a good thing that is brought to my attention, we could definitely share it with the rest of the community and rest of the family. It doesn't matter who the individual is. Anybody in the family is as equivalent or matters as everybody else. I'm just a person that is reporting this stuff. However, I'm just like everybody else in this community. The overall goal is what? For me, I'll tell you what my overall goal. Reach financial freedom and hopefully be somewhat of a difference in somebody else's life for the better. Even no matter how big or how small, just anything for the better. And this is for me, being in the family, this community is everything to me. Doesn't matter how big or small. I appreciate and love each single one of you guys exactly the same, because we all have something to provide to the table. The table is never too small for whatever amount of people to be on it. There's always a seat at the table for everyone, and I know everybody brings in something. Remember, Tell Dog, it's easier to be said than just be put on the comment with 3-4 words with a finger pointed at it. And now you create 100,000 questions. So save these. Imagine what these questions would be. And we'll work in the background so that we can have a session soon to talk about this crypto stuff, or at least what people, whoever is interested, could pay attention to. Not financial advice, obviously, not telling people where to get in or what to do or what not to do, but at least have people give them an access to something, whether they reach for it, that's up to them. If they don't, also it's amazing, but it's better to have than not to have. Use the old hookahs for the sndl. Stasia, that's a very good allocation and a plan. Oh man. So let's look at what we have here, guys. AMC. Not before we show. So on the 5-day chart, we've seen, as you can see here, we're having bearish trends. However, this one wasn't material. It didn't materialize. So this is odd to see that, because I personally have always seen that whether bearish pennants or bullish pennants normally pan out, like in this case right here. Down here, you see that? This one was foretold and therefore it acted on it. And now you see this, which we'll get into, or we'll be able to see on a daily chart. But here, it didn't formulate a bearish trend. What it did was go up, and this was the point where last week we were at this point right here somewhere. And we were just breaking out of this trend, and we did. So we're having higher highs and higher lows, which is very, 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 very good as far as for the overall sentiment that is coming. Now, what do we have to incorporate? And also, we got to look at the daily. And what I'm seeing here is a bullish pennant. This is materializing here. Could this be it right there? I personally think that tomorrow, and this is an opinion, again, I think some of these could materialize as we saw or not materialize. But from a technical perspective, it looks like we'll be retracing tomorrow. To where that's going to be tough, I think somewhere in mid 15s by Friday, mid 15s, maybe, just maybe. Bottom 16s. I know I had Super Steven said it was, I think he said 1605, somewhere around along that line. I don't want to be quoting him incorrectly, but I know that it was in the bottom 16s somewhere. I see it, yeah, somewhere there, or in the mid to upper 15s. Now, why am I also saying this? Because you can't just look at this and that's it. This is the AB talk to you and formula. This is where many technical analysis people, I've told you before, they fall short. They just look at the chart and therefore they make their decision, which is the biggest recipe for disaster. Sometimes at that point you're doing a 50-50, which I know is good odds or better odds than knowing nothing, but that's not like, it's not educated people on these matters. They don't just go with the technical analysis of the chart. You got to also look at the technical analysis of what if you've been paying attention to AB's live streams, what have you heard? What else do we pay attention to? Let me see if anybody puts it in the thing. Now I'm testing people. What else do we pay attention to besides just the technical analysis of a chart? Because overall, it gives us a clear image on possibly something higher than a 50% overall percentage. Nothing's going to be 100% because we're trying to predict what the future sentiment is going to be based on the transactions that are happening before us. Tomorrow and Friday, some other transactions could go through that obviously are not put into place now. So things could change, but at least we want to come up with something that's a little higher than 50% predictability. And what do we do to get that? Let me see. Somebody put that. Mikey J, level 2 data. Well, level 2, you're going to see it on the like on a daily, like when the market is open. What else do we look at is the options chain, guys. And when we look at the options chain here, as I look at it, and let me just look at it on the spot. As you can see, I don't ever come out with already having planned what we're going to do, except the articles or the main themes that we're going to talk about. But since now we got into this, I didn't look at this. I was busy trying to connect the computer the whole time and set up the software. On the options chain, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the calls first. So, oh wow, people are still holding on those 15 and a half. 16s beginning, okay, 16 and a half. Okay, all right. So, as of right now, as I speak right now, it looks like by Friday, their aim is to have us for sure under 17. As of right now, tomorrow the picture could get clearer. But as of right now, if I was to imagine or hyper speculate on what Friday would be, from their actions, it looks like 17 is going to be something that we're not going to go above. $16 and a half, we'll see the change on it tomorrow. And because they're not going to hold through them on Friday, most of these, if they're institutional or if it's, you know, who we think they are. 15 and a half is the most bullish one. It's kind of like on the options chain, the 15 and a half is our support line right now, acting as the support line, but all that could change tomorrow, Friday. Let's see. As far as yeah, as far as puts, most of the people sold their 15 and a half. Some are holding on to their 16. And majority of the 16 and a half is gone. $17 is okay. No open interest, no open interest. Most of these got processed, I'm pretty sure. They sold. Wow. So overall, this is saying that the point that we're at today is most likely the point we will end up at by Friday. This is not financial advice. This is just what I'm looking at from here. And then looking at this, will we end at the 17 and a half? If I was to go with my own personal opinion, I think that's where we'll end up by Friday. Is somewhere between the 17 and a half. But I'm leaning heavily toward the idea of, or that I mentioned earlier, which was the mid 15s to possibly the early 16s, the low 16s. So, but as far as from what I'm seeing, it looks like 17 to 17 and a half is what we're probably looking at by Friday when it's all said and done. Overall, I don't see green. I will say this, and we will see as the day, as tomorrow comes and as Friday comes along. We'll see if that materializes. Take all this stuff, obviously, guys, with a grain of salt. But I see red coming. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just what I see. I'm not gonna create something that I don't see. If I'm wrong, I hope I am. If I'm not wrong, then I saw it coming. All right, let's see, what do we have here? Quizmo, aloha, what's up, brother? Yes, Mikey, options. Um, all right. I think I am good with the amount that I've taken so far from you beautiful people. What do you guys want to do? Do you guys have any questions? You guys have any questions? Lay them out for me now so I can perhaps let you guys go. Yo, look at this. Because I made it small over here. Leah saying information you shared about the housing construction issues was an eye-opening blessing. We are relocating due to job loss over job and almost considered building. Not going to build now. Well, hopefully the information influenced you on that decision, Leah. It's again, we're viewing it and we're listening to it, we're reacting to it. I reacted to it. Hopefully it made all sense, and hopefully we're on the right side of things. I pray to the Lord that we're on the right side of things. You are streaming later so I can actually watch. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't even planned, Quizmo, honestly. I just had gotten the new system, so I'm good with this. Still on that skateboard? What skateboard? Arthur's back. Quizmo, have you rode on a scooter before, AB? Yeah, I have. Mikey J the Great. Mikey, hopefully you're enjoying. I don't know if you read that book that I sent you. Hopefully you enjoyed it, or you're enjoying it. You know, it's like I said, it was a very special story and book because obviously it's a real event. It's in the Congress Library currently. It was done by the students of Yale and University of Wisconsin, and it's a very, very, very remarkable story. And a lot of people need to know it because of the history that is set, and the history in the history books that we learn as we're coming up as kids, and the history that truly happened are two different things. That's the moral of that. If you have any questions about it, definitely share that sentiment with me on Discord. If you don't, hopefully you enjoying it, or you enjoyed it if you already read it. It was brought to my attentions once upon a time, like a few years ago, by one of my really close dear friends to me, Somalian brother. So yes, hopefully you enjoy it. Nice scooters are more of a workout than they look. I started riding one to work. Well, at least you're getting a workout in, right? So looking at the good things about it, just searching for the positivity. That's one positive thing, besides the inconvenience. All right. Nothing else to cover. Let me look at something in something developed over here. If anybody, like I said, if you have any questions, guys, put them in. I'll be more than happy to answer if I know the answer to it. AB, glad you're able to live again. Have a good one. I'm going to go now. See ya, everyone. Have a great night. Have a great night, brother. All right. now it's time to wrap up everything. Well, I'm very, very happy to say, guys, that I'm glad that I got a new system once again. Now we're live. We could go live again. That doesn't mean I won't be making videos. I'll make the videos anyways, but the lives when we need them. When you have questions, guys, this is the best times to throw them, because you know it can be an interaction where you ask it and it can be answered much easier than typing it. So hopefully you enjoyed this quick on put together, I guess, live, just so that the new system is put together. And if you do not require anything else, 1 second, let me see. There's one question. And I guess if I had one other question, what are your thoughts on the Paramount decree? Sorry if you covered it already. I did not cover it, Chrismo, but Steven, Super Steven, was actually gonna come on tonight. I think something happened with him. I don't know what it is. Hopefully everything's great with him. But he was supposed to come on tonight and actually cover that and talk about that. So I'll leave that to be his story to be talked about. Once we talk about it in the next, I think he also covered it in his last live. So definitely go on it. My opinion is not going to change much from, obviously, Steven. He's one of my close friends. So therefore, I can agree with it. I didn't dig too much into Paramount personally myself, because I'm looking at just other factors that are different things. But I definitely welcome it in, because without Super Steven, I personally I would be completely in the dark. I wouldn't even have looked at the Paramount direction or any other direction, whether Disney, Paramount, whatever. My interest is not in figuring out what that pounce is going to be, more or less than the fact that there's a pounce coming. And I know from my experience that it's very rare that you have a CEO announce that they're going to pounce and announce it like that. Like, it's very rare occasions, like the overstock guy, Ryan Cohen with Chewy, Elon Musk with Tesla, and like I said, very few occasions where they come out and say stuff like that, because there's only so much that they could do without getting sued or opening their backs up to get sued. So that's where my intentions or my attention is kind of focused on. It's not more so on what the pounce is going to be. It's more of, I know that there is a pounce coming. The CEO announced it. They normally don't do that, so that means there is a lot of grease to it. We saw that today. They were able to recuperate some of their debt and paying it off at even a 30% discount. That's a debt that they have to pay regardless. And just because they're paying it in these times and they reached that deal with the entity they owe the debt to for 30% less, I think that was awesome, very awesome. I think it saves them about a year worth of debt, and overall it just tackles it more. I think that's about, I don't know, I think somebody calculated the amount. I didn't look into that much. Again, like I said, I was setting up the whole system all day today, but that news broke out late last night, early in the morning, and throughout the market today. It was buzzing. That's very, very good for us. As far as for Sundial, I've seen somebody mention something about Sundial. Sundial, I've mentioned months ago to everybody that their CEO on board were hinting at a stock, reverse stock split. And in order to consolidate the shares, further making the price higher, which most likely right now they're at this, last I've seen is that they're standing between the gates of either to do a 10-to-1 or a 25-to-1. Don't let any people who don't understand the market sell you hopeism. And here's what I mean by that. People who don't look at these factors and possibly see, what if, for example, Sundial do the 25-to-1 or the 10-to-1 stock split? Obviously will incorporate within the value of the stock, which means the stock will become whatever, $3, $4. problem is some people think, oh, that's close to that. No, it didn't. That means if you have a position in it, your 10 shares just became equivalent to 1. So it's the same mathematical equation. However, when it comes time to sell, it's actually worse for you, because if the stock of sndl squeezes to whatever price, you're selling, instead of 10 shares for that price, you're selling 1. But they get to avoid being punched down or kicked out down to the OTC market, which in their book or in that board's view, they don't want. They don't want to get delisted and be sent down to the OTC market. They want to stay within the NASDAQ. They want to stay listed. So they are willing, and again, this is quoting their words, their CEO. He said that a few months ago, that if it comes down to them having to do a share or a stock split, a reverse stock split, then they will do it in order to avoid being sent down to the OTC markets. So will that happen? We'll be seeing soon, actually, very soon, because we know that this jump today in the marijuana sector was because of the hopes that around July 27th, I think, or the 21st, there is a House committee meeting, and they said they would bring it up so that they can get it exonerated completely, even federally. So that means people who had prior marijuana issues, or like tickets, or things on their records, all that stuff will get wiped federally, and then people would recreationally be able to use, or obviously they will have an infrastructure at that point, which they already worked on, to have these dispensaries and medical dispensaries, but on a federal level throughout all the United States of America. Now, I'm going to put in my 2 cents here and say they did the same exact hype last year at around the same exact time, and ended up giving people a nothing burger. It's going to always be a nothing burger until it's not. Finally, it's one of those times is not going to be a nothing burger. So what am I trying to get to with you is, I would say, taper your expectations. If you are in any marijuana stocks, prepare yourself, factor the new dynamics. If there is going to be such thing as a reverse stock split, personally, for me, I went ahead and incorporated buying more. I did this. Not financial advice to you. I could be a moron at the end of the day. I'm wrong completely. But I went and purchased more so I could factor in if they do something like a 10-to-1 stock split. Even after they do it, I still have the same amount of exposure that I initially wanted to have toward that stock. And when it does its thing, I still, all that stuff gets factored in, rather than waiting until the stock split happens. And then basically, yes, it would equate to be the same thing, but it's going to be much tougher for you to be like, okay, can I buy a sundial or at the cost of whatever, $5 or $6 or $4? I'm used to it being in the 30 cent and 40 cent and the high 20 cent range. So we don't know what's going to come with the future. If you do have the conviction and you are in that game or in that realm, then cover your bases. Think how you could basically cover your bases, and don't buy too much into the hype of, or put yourself in a position where you're all or nothing, hoping that they do what they have to do. I told you guys before, but long time ago, that eventually when the market completely crashes, we're going to need, like the economy is going to need by force to legalize this so they can earn the tax money that they could tax it by. Right now, the marijuana sector is not being taxed, and that's billions upon billions of dollars that I know that federal state is eyeballing a lot, but they still have to uphold that demeanor that, oh, these are drugs and it's bad for our people and all that stuff. Doesn't matter what your position personally, or what my position is on the matter, but as far as the law policy, that's the facade that they're putting on. But obviously, where there's money, everything there will always be a conversation. So will they do such thing before crash? That's very feasible and possible. So it doesn't make, so it won't come out like they're forcing it, or they're forced to do such thing, financially. Or will they wait until after the crash and perhaps, I don't know, they have other plans to incorporate later? Sooner or later, like I said, I personally believe that they will do it and they will earn a lot. They will make a lot of money, and they're not idiots. They know this. They will make a lot of money in taxation once it gets taxed, because it becomes regulated. So right now it's not. So that's my thought or my 2 cents on that. I was forgetting on that reverse stock split on that stock. Yeah. You got it, Grismo. That was, I was in Tilray back in 2021 and experienced a big run up. I keep holding and did not end up continuing to hold it after the year ended. I mean, it's you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is, Grismo. I remember that I was actually a part of that run up. I know exactly what you're talking about. When Tilray ran up into the 60s, I believe it was 67, 64 bucks, if I'm not mistaken. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful time. Obviously, that at that time, the whole entire market was like, "Oh yes, green, green, green." Also, another quick thing, I forgot to say this in the beginning of the live stream. If you realized our upward trajectory that where we gone in AMC, since we're making higher highs and higher lows, but we're moving very tightly, and you see the volume one increased, but now as of today, it dropped a little bit below, like about 8-10 million below than what we've been seeing in these past few days, in this last 3 to 4 days. When you ask yourself, like, what is happening here? There's a plethora of thoughts or ideas. But one thing I can stress and say here is that market maker does not want to get obliterated on the options. So the longer the stagnant movement slash slowly staring up avoids high volatility, which means it factors into the Greeks of the options, meaning that people don't get this crazy. So like, let's say that we started the week at, what was it? Was it around 15? And now we're at 17 and a half. Okay. If that happened in one session, then a lot of people with options would be making ridiculous amount of money. And that doesn't mean that they haven't been making it here as well. If they had the right strike prices, then they would definitely still be making good chunks, especially if they're traders. But this movement like this avoids the IV and the volatility, which means the factoring into the Greeks of the options, whether for puts or for calls, is not going to be harmful to the market maker. So very, very suspicious activity, right? That's my opinion. We'll see what happens as far as like when tomorrow and Friday comes about. We'll see. Yes, Prismo, it's definitely very wild of how much is going up on very low volume, because it's kind of like it looks like it's studied. It's moving with purpose. Someone is moving it purposefully on a particular level. Anyways, we reached it. I don't think I have any more. Maybe as soon as I get off the live, I will have a lot of things will come to mind, but I literally got to go get some food. I got to relax. I got to change. This new computer took the best of me today. And the rest of it I gave to you guys. Thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. I'm glad to see you guys back again. It's been like 2 weeks since we have done a live, so it feels like 2 years. So hopefully you enjoyed everything. If you don't exactly need anything, if you don't require anything else of me or any other thing, then I would humbly, ask to sign off. So with that being said, I see here one last glance, no questions. Thank you, Crismo, and everybody else. And till the next time, guys, much love, AB Investments.